Welcome to Slash Bash, where today I am bringing you another proRevenge Reddit video. In our first story, we have revenge on a Mailbox Vandal. Let's jump right in. This is my dad's revenge, not mine, and this happened last summer. My parents live out on a lake just outside of town. Their property extends to both sides of the road, and their mailbox is on the opposite side of the lake and the house. Over the 4 years they have lived at the property, a black SUV has knocked down their mailbox 6 times. They catch the vehicle on the security camera on the gate, but get no identifying info. My dad would report it every time, but not much could be done. It was knocked over by a drunk driver once as well, but he crashed a bit further down the road, so that was the only time that my dad got reimbursed for the damage. Well, after the 7th time it was knocked down, he had had enough. The land on the opposite side of the road dropped off steeply immediately after the shoulder, so my dad contracted some guys to build out a small gravel pad, 15 feet long and 3 feet deep or so that he could set his mailbox back from the road. My dad told me that if someone tried to knock it down now, they would regret it. Well, about 4 months after the work was complete, my parents were awoken to a loud crash in the middle of the night. They called the police and went out to investigate. They found the black SUV off the road and having crashed into a very large tree. The guy was taken to the hospital and was charged with a DUI from the crash, as well as possession of drugs they found in the vehicle. By building out the gravel pad and moving the mailbox back by just a few feet, it still appeared that the mailbox was on the shoulder and still seemed like an easy target. In reality, those 3 feet made all the difference. Because the pad was so short, the vandal left the roadway before the pad started, and when the right side of his vehicle went off the shoulder, his car went veering down the steep incline. The dude was pretty badly injured, and I know my dad felt bad about this. I think this was much more effective than he had in mind. My dad isn't the kind of person to intentionally injure someone, so I'm sure he was hoping to just cause damage to a vehicle and teach a lesson that way. Mailbox Story number 2. I posted this as a reply to someone else's mailbox story. I was informed that it should be its own post, so here it is, edited slightly for clarity. This didn't start out as a quest for vengeance, we just wanted mail delivery to our house. Vengeance came as a byproduct, but it was truly delightful nonetheless. So, mailbox story time. This happened back in 1982 for the record. My folks moved to a very rural area on a gravel road. No one had previously lived here, so it was a battle just getting mail delivery in the first place. My folks went several rounds with the local postmaster. He was somewhat enamored with his own power and very much a rules to the letter kind of guy. Every I must be dotted, every T crossed. And if there's so much as a semicolon out of place, you'll have to start all over again. He seemed to have made it his personal mission to make getting mail delivery to a new address as difficult as humanly possible. Ultimately, my folks managed to fill out the paperwork to his satisfaction, and he begrudgingly allowed us to put up a box and receive mail delivery at our new home. Dad was extremely careful in the placement of our box and made absolutely certain it was the exact height, precise placement from the road, etc., to avoid annoying our local postmaster any more than we already had. There are, or at least there were, very specific rules about rural mailboxes. Dad followed every single one. That first mailbox was perfect. The man who drove the road grader was as annoyed as the local postmaster, as he now had a new driveway to accommodate. We suspect that's why he had it out for our mailbox. After the road grader had demolished 3 of our mailboxes, Dad got pissed. Previously, he'd used the most basic design, just a post in the ground with a box on top. Now he was motivated. Dad got a hold of a 9-foot-long section of metal pipe. It's 4 inches in diameter, outer measurement, and has 3/4-inch thick walls. I have no idea what this was originally intended for, but I know how Dad used it. He dug a hole 5.5 feet deep. He welded an upside-down tripod shape think open umbrella to the bottom of the pole and dropped it into the 6-foot wide hole. Each welded-on leg was about 3 feet of some kind of rebar, and there were 5 such spokes. He then dropped some huge rocks on top of the tripod shape to hold it in place. The empty spaces around the huge rocks were filled in with gravel, and he dumped sand to fill in the air gaps. Then he filled the rest of the hole in with dirt and mounted the mailbox on top of the post. 3 days after Dad installed the new mailbox, we heard the road grader coming down the road. Our house is a quarter mile from the road, but we heard the loud clang from inside. We also heard the cursing and swearing from inside. No one went down to look until they heard the road grader drive away. When they did, the box itself was slightly dented on one side, but it was still firmly upright and functional. 3 weeks later, we received a bill from the township for a bent grader blade. It was accompanied by a letter informing us that we had caused damage to city property because our mailbox was installed incorrectly. It would need to be moved, and we were liable for a bill of a couple $1,000s worth of repairs. Here's where it becomes pro-revenge instead of petty. Recall the fact that the local postmaster was annoyed with us over our battle to get mail delivery? Mom had made a point of each time we reinstalled the mailbox taking photographs down to the post office and having the local postmaster sign off approval of the height, placement, etc. She'd done the same with Dad's Superpost and had documented signed approval of the box dated the day before the road grader had bent his blade trying to demolish the box. She submitted copies of the invoice for the grader blade and the letter stating that the damage was our fault because our mailbox was incorrectly placed to the post office. She also submitted copies of the official post office approval of the box to the township. The jerk of a postmaster was also quite prideful and became furious that his authority was being called into question by some podunk township. As far as he was concerned, the township wasn't questioning my parents. They were stating that his judgment was wrong. I don't know what went down between the postmaster and the township, but we received a second letter from the post office reiterating their approval of our mailbox. We also got a formal apology from the township and noticed that the road grader's contract had been terminated because he'd lied about damage to city property. It was worded with a tone that said, "Please don't sue us because a contracted employee damaged your property." For the record, that post Dad installed nearly 40 years ago is still standing. We've replaced the box on top many times. That post, however, has now wrecked 2 cars and a truck, in addition to that long-ago road grader. Story number 3, The Great Arby's Avalanche. In my high school years, I had a typical high school job of fast food worker at Arby's. Most of the job was very easy and surprisingly fun unless there was a real butthead manager that happened to be working that day. Well, this is a story about revenge on a boss manager. Our store had a real gem female manager that was very out and open about her hating men. She was a lesbian, nothing wrong with that, and made it very clear to all males they absolutely did not matter to her. She would give females extra breaks, allow them to be late, give them free food, etc. The males, on the other hand, were treated like actual piles of dog doo-doo. The manager would leave us alone during busy times and sit in her car. She would take insane amounts of smoke breaks and whine and complain at us when she'd come back and things would be all backed up. Eventually, several months of her garbage attitude and clear hatred got the best of me, and one day I had enough, and I hatched a plan. At that time, Arby's used to take call-ahead orders on large workplace or party orders. People would call in and say they needed X amount of sandwiches for a luncheon. These call-in orders didn't need to be verified in any way. Anyone could call these in. I heard a different manager one time explain to someone that if someone were to call in a $300 order and ditch the order, he'd probably get fired for allowing that much beef to get wasted. The roast beef product at Arby's is treated like gold. One day I knew this manager was working with me and I executed my plan. About halfway through the shift, I used the bathroom and texted a friend that was willing to help me. I simply texted him, "It's go time." My buddy then calls our store and puts in an order for 200 roast beef sandwiches, which at that time would be about $300 to $350. This didn't affect me whatsoever because I was on drive-thru that day and didn't need to make food. My manager immediately gets pissed that she had to make all this food and starts the process. After about an hour, she gets finished and goes on a tirade about how stupid everyone at that store is. Over the next 2 hours, it was next to impossible for me to hold in my laughter, as I could tell she was growing very angry and worried that the order was never getting picked up. I started noticing her making phone calls to other managers and upper management people about what the hell to do with 200 roast beef sandwiches. Eventually, it was time for me to clock out and go home, so I did. Over the next several times I worked, I noticed I was not with this idiot manager anymore. In fact, I never saw her ever again. She either quit or was fired. I guess I'll never know. This is John from /bash. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed the video and want to be the first to know when the next one drops, subscribe and click on that notifications bell. We'd love for you to drop a like, share it with your friends, and we'll see you in the next one.